is Sustainability Unboxed. We want to demystify the role of sustainability professionals. And I'm really excited that I have someone like you who is a sustainability professional who has traversed the banking industry, academia, and consulting. So you bring on board a wealth of experience. So my first question is, when we say sustainability professional, who exactly is a sustainability professional, and what do we mean when we say sustainability professional? Because it's now being used loosely. Everybody is suddenly a sustainability expert. So what are your thoughts on who a sustainability professional is?
Yeah, thank you very much, Grace, for that question. I think it's a very good question. And I also think it is important that this conversation is happening today. And I think at the end of the day, we'll be able to get people to understand, when they listen to the podcast, to understand what it means to be professionals and what is the difference between to be professional and the different experts in the different fields of sustainability. So for a sustainability professional, first and foremost, is not necessarily an expert. That's one. A sustainability professional is somebody who plays in the field of sustainability. But again, what is the field of sustainability? That comes back to that question. What is the field of sustainability? In the real terms, in the real sense, sustainability cuts across different professions, different fields, different studies, different sciences, in economics, in accounting, in the medical profession, in credit risk, in risk, people in risk, in asset management and all that. It cuts across different fields in that way. And yes, in as much as we now see that there are courses, I don't know whether in Nigerian universities are offering those courses at master's level, on degree level, PhD level, but even in Europe and America, increasingly and the East, you see a lot of courses, a lot of programs, first degree, master's degree, PhD, and short courses and all that, even in Nigeria to an extent, and maybe certifications that are focused on sustainability, trying to build expertise in different fields. For example, climate finance, for example, GHG accounting, for example, social accounting metrics. Yeah, for example, broader environmental conversation around biodiversity, reforestation, for example, reporting areas and all that. So you see different impact assessment and all that to build capacity of people to be able to do all these things. But again, the question lies is that those who play in this field, who work in organizations and play this as professionals. And these professionals can actually be in any department. So the idea that somebody professional is only in the sustainability department is in itself not accurate or correct, because somebody professional can be in credit risk, because in credit risk, those guys are involved, they're supposed to screen transactions for ESG risk. Somebody professional should be in finance, because one of the things that finance looks at the finance of the organization. And if we look at the six capitals, the six capitals of technical reporting, one of the most important capital there is the finance capital. And that looks at what the financial situation of the organization, the investment the organization is making, what kind of investment are they making? How does sustainability, how does sustainability, let's take, how does climate risk, for example, affect the finance of the organization? How does fiscal, from a fiscal risk perspective and from a liability risk perspective, even from a transition risk? So those in the CFO's office or the should be able to even understand that in a way that not just people in the sustainability department, but if the organization understanding that. Yeah, it's also organization is supposed to be like a guardian, the knowledge center, whereby you have the head of sustainability has that knowledge, overall broad strategic direction of the organization. He understands what the organization needs to do, looking at the strategy that has been defined for the organization to go through. But in terms of understanding sustainability in different units of the organization, the head of sustainability unit cannot only them cannot, because you need the different components, the audit, compliance, credit risk, finance, procurement, to have a clear knowledge to be able to understand what it means for the organization to set a sustainable procurement direction, what it means for the organization to set different directions for the organization in relation to sustainability. So who is a sustainability professional for me? It's somebody is has to do with, which again is a misunderstanding, and again, which we've not been able to, I mean, I think we've not, as organizations still are not there. A professional is somebody who is able to understand Hello, can you hear me now? I think it
Yes,
went off.
excellent. Yes. Oh, okay. Network. Yeah, our
Yeah,
challenge in
network. Okay, yeah.
this.
So that, so he understands that bit of a way of life. This is a way of life. It's cultural. As society is cultural, it's about the economy, it's about the social consciousness, it's about the environment. That is a sustainability professional. It doesn't have to be an expert yet. Expert is a different conversation. It's a completely different conversation. And you cannot be a sustainability expert as a broad sustainability expert because there are different areas of sustainability. So the professional is that guy who starts that journey of being he wants to understand sustainability. He wants to understand that sustainability, what how sustainability interacts with his own business, what he does. He wants to understand that sustainability informs what he or she does. That is a sustainability professional. And that for me,
I,
that's a sustainability professional.
I totally agree with you, Godson, because the truth is sustainability is very broad. You have the environmental aspect, the social, the governance, and for somebody to actually be an expert in every one of those activities or segments of sustainability will be very challenging. So I also agree with you that sustainability is cross-functional. Let the experts in a particular thing play a role in every organization's sustainability journey. Otherwise, you're going to get it wrong. In fact, I am an accountant, I have a finance background, and expecting me to be able to understand the nitty-gritty, the science behind climate change and some other technical biodiversity and co would be an exercise in futility, but allowing me to play my role that within the sustainability ecosystem that uses my unique skills as a finance expert would actually make the sustainability journey exciting for every organization. So I totally agree with you. And something I've come across is that sustainability is often misunderstood, even by people who call themselves sustainability experts. Why do you think that people misunderstand sustainability? You have some people defining sustainability in just looking at just one aspect, whereas sustainability is broad. Why do you think people misunderstand sustainability?
Yeah, I think the challenge is the different ways people came into sustainability. And what I mean by different ways is that some people came, let's different ways. One, I'll categorize into two. Then when I do that categorization into two, then I will speak. Then on one will be more diverse in terms of that different approach. One is that a lot of people came to sustainability without even having knowledge of sustainability. Just came in, maybe organization just say, "Oh, you've been in the organization, go and head sustainability unit." They just bring somebody maybe from any unit, any department without no training, no knowledge, no reading on sustainability, no even understanding of the philosophical underpinnings of sustainability, and say, go ahead, sustainability unit. You see that some organizations, and that in law itself is catastrophic in itself. Then two, there's people came with knowledge. So people have environmental knowledge, have social knowledge, maybe the social knowledge of engaging. They've always been engaging community, maybe the community relations, building, trying to ensure that that social license to operate exists. And for that reason, they try to engage in philanthropic activities and we just engage communities. So when they come in, their mindset is focused on that, and that is the direction of something that they focus on. Then that is called sustainability. They come, so people are just environmental. So they'll be doing environmental impact assessment. And when they started, they didn't really start as sustainability because EIA has been done for ages. And they were doing this environmental impact assessment and all that. They conduct soil tests and all those tests. And for them, when sustainability became a conversation, for them, that was sustainability. And they were doing sustainability. They also have like those in the oil and gas sector that started with HSC. HSC was how sustainability started in oil and gas because of the crazy issues. There was somebody that the community health, safety, and environment in that sector. So because of the issues and the debt, the risks in oil and gas stream, they had to put in measures in place, conduct audit, conduct compliance, and all that to ensure that those risks are better off, people are well managed, the workplace is better, the community engagement, and also so they see that as sustainability. And when they talk of sustainability, that's what they're talking about. That we are doing sustainability. That's it. But as things started, because if you look at sustainability itself, if you look at the whole origin, starting from philanthropy, looking at the Carnegie Foundations, the Carnegies, and all that, the whole journey, and the CSRO, which is also sustainability, but in the academia, it's still seen that way, but in the practice, it's no more because people saw it as more philanthropy from a practical perspective. Then again, you see the narrow down HSC, they come down to all these different components of sustainability, and there was no climate then. There was no climate. And those who quickly understood the climate conversation and the GHG accounting also came in and said their sustainability. Those who understood climate finance also came in as per green bond issues and all that, say they are doing sustainability. But the question is that is not doing all this in different components. Yes, all of them are core to sustainability. They are core. There's no argument with that. So that doesn't make you an expert in one of those things, doesn't make you a sustainability expert. It can make you really an expert in some of them. You are an expert in GHG accounting, expert in climate finance, expert in green bond issuance, expert in green bond advisory, expert in green in what's it called in assurance of green bond framework. So you can be all these things. As a certification of green bond, third party, fantastic. Expert in philanthropic activities, expert in gender-based policies of gender-based. This you can be expert in that. So that was a miss. And it makes organizations to just narrow, and that's where the problem. That doesn't make you a sustainability expert, but it makes you a different expert in different areas. But one thing that sustainability should help, should be called, and that's why I keep saying it goes back again to the department. And one thing a sustainability unit in a department, sustainability department, should do in an organization is sustainability, the head of sustainability might not have the knowledge of all this in terms of the experts. He has the knowledge, he has the knowledge. He may not have all the experts, he might have just one. Then, but the head of sustainability, the role is to ensure that the strategic direction as it relates to social within the workplace environment, building a sustainable workplace, working with HR to build a sustainable workplace, working with the maybe general services of the organization to build, offices, create offices that are environmentally friendly and safe, and with HR also working with the community relations people to ensure that there's a clear harmony and clear alignment between the community needs and the organization as a strategic from a strategic point of view, working with the environmental guys, for example, to ensure also that in the measurement of that which again goes back to the general office or health safety and environment to ensure that the right data are collected, the right, and they are trained also, already regularly trained and informed, right data are collected and all that to ensure that the organization are able to measure proactively this, and also ensure that when they measure and collect this data, they are able to address the inaccuracy being there. That's the, they also working with the department, for example, like credits to ensure that they conduct proper ESG screening of transactions and work with clients from a moral situation to understand how they can deepen sustainability in their different organizations, and also working with the CFO, the finance, to ensure that the finance start thinking of how the organization's finances, money-making approach, how sustainability is impacting on it, and how possibly climate risk can affect the organization and affect their finances and all that. So that is what that head of sustainability is to do. And you have such a person in an organization who understands that strategic direction and driving the organization with the leadership at the top, supporting and all that, we will be able to understand this whole misunderstanding and this whole conclusion that understanding the environment alone is sustainability, understanding the social alone is sustainability, understanding the governance, which is the umbrella alone is sustainability. We want to say that no, that is not what sustainability is about. That sustainability is about a broader conversation and a broader that looks at the holistic way of life of an organization. Holistic way the organization is run, for example, from a point of view, then from a societal point of view, a holistic way of life of that society, a holistic way of life of looking at the economy and all that. So that is what that understanding would come, because the head of the organization, the head of sustainability, we as a knowledge person and as the guardian of sustainability knowledge will ensure that the right trainings are done, and so that sustainability can be well understood. This is my thinking around that.
Thank you so much, Godson. Exciting perspective. I totally agree with you that these are the reasons why sustainability is misunderstood. It is complex, multidimensional issues, and people tend to look at it in silos and not take into cognizance the entire dimension of sustainability. I also totally agree with you that the way people stumbled into sustainability determines their view of sustainability. I came in to sustainability because of the convergence of financial reporting and sustainability reporting. And the finance professional in me brought on board my analytical reporting, financial reporting aspect into sustainability. So I will never call myself a sustainability expert because I know my own focus is sustainability reporting. But a lot of people don't understand that sustainability is very broad, it's complex, it's multidimensional. So I totally agree with you. And interestingly, I didn't even know you were an executive committee member of the Sustainability Professionals in Nigeria. And when I was reading your profile, I was really excited. Would you want to throw more light on what SPIN is doing in Nigeria and how it is improving on the knowledge of people, professionals within the sustainability ecosystem to keep them abreast of development and also give them the requisite knowledge? Hello, Godson, you're muted if you're speaking. I can't hear you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I was muted. I just saw you there. I said
Okay.
SPIN came into existence in 2020. And I will say, apart from Professor Kenneth Amishi and the founding members, Professor Kenneth Amishi is the president, and the other founding members who are the board members of SPIN. I was one of the first members of SPIN, and as a member of the stakeholders and advocacy and stakeholders directorate. And then I'm also the founding member. I'm also a foundational member of, not the founder, we use the word founding, but a foundational member of the executive committee of SPIN representing the the advocacy and stakeholder relations directorate. Yeah, it's not been a really smooth journey, I would say that, from SPIN, but we are getting there in terms of what we want to achieve. And I see SPIN as a very significant and consequential professional body for sustainability in Nigeria. And why do I say that? In as much as it's been quite slow, we've done some stuff. For example, in 2021, 2022, we've done several inductions. A lot of people have been inducted to SPIN. We have people, for example, the head of sustainability at First Bank, Ishmael, is a member of SPIN. He's also one of the founding members. He's a board member. So we have Bolale, Access Bank, is also one of the founding members, a board member. We have Inia Bimbola, who is Tiso Practice, one of the founding members, the vice president. We have Bekeme, who is also a founding member of CRO initiative or something like that, is there. We have Eunice also, who is also a founding member, and she's an associate partner at EY. Eunice, she's also there as a founding and a board member, also leading the learning and development directorate. Ishmael, the head of sustainability at First Bank, leads the advocacy and secondary relations direction. So these are some people who have good knowledge of sustainability and understand from an organizational point of view, have led sustainability. For example, Ishmael actually laid the foundation for sustainability at First Bank. So even Bolali too, that's I know these people lay those foundations in their different organizations, and considering the way we understand Nigerian organization, even the banking sector, that if they were able to even do this, something that we could commend and talk about and say, yeah, they've tried a lot in terms of trying to lay those foundations. So SPIN, they've done a lot of induction, but then also what they've done to deepen sustainability, we started with webinars in 2022, in January or so. We did a webinar on the workplace. It was focused on SDG 8. That webinar was focused on SDG 8 in the workplace. And why did we decide to do that? Because if we look at ourselves and say we are sustainability professionals, I think the first place where we thought we could start from is creating an understanding on the importance of building a sustainable workplace that would help to drive or catalyze sustainability in organization. Because if the workplace in itself is hostile, toxic, and not a place that people want to come to, then sustainability cannot be something that you can say is can be integrated in the organization. It starts from that. That's why human capital is very important. And if we look at ISO 2600, even some of the GRI standards and even some of the all standard IFSS, you see that there are fundamental conversations around the workplace, the employee, the people. People are always at the center of sustainability. Because without the people, whether the people starting from the employees and going to the community and the customers and all that, it's a challenge to talk about sustainability. And that is why we did that webinar. It was a very successful webinar. Then it was driven by the Advocacy and Secondary Research Directory. Then in 2023, considering because then at that time climate change conversation was already a focus. But I remember I was doing, let me digress. I remember when I was doing strategy for a financial holding institution in Nigeria in 2020. When we were doing that strategy, one of the things they were telling me is that we don't want climate, we want things that to do with the issues in Africa. But funny enough, we did the climate part of the pillars of the strategy that because when they just tell me this is I laugh when I was a consultant, I just smile. I would give you holistic. I want to give strategy to them, and so one pillar was on environment, focusing on climate, water, and waste management. They raised, and when we did the presentation, why they calmed down and saw the relationship between the business and these issues. So, and in 2023, we did a climate finance webinar. It was a very fantastic webinar. We brought the National Council of Climate Change. Dairu was represented by Venso. He was there. The Energy Transition Office was also there. We brought them. They were there. Then there's a World Bank consultant. He's been working on climate. He was a keynote speaker. And it was a very successful webinar. We tried to make people understand what climate finance was about. It wasn't just about issuing green bonds. There are cautionary loans, there are green bonds, there are different funds, the green climate funds, adaptation funds, and it depends on the areas you want to invest, the mitigation, adaptation, all that, and what the banks can do to develop products. It was very successful, and that was it. As at 2024 now, we have finally developed a curriculum in Spain, and we started training. We did the first training at the beginning of this month on sustainability reporting that was led by Bekeme. The second training is going to be done on the 25th of April, Thursday. That's 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks from now, to be anchored by Professor Ken and Nature Sustainable Finance. So these things will continue. So that is what Spain is about. So in doing this, we are deepening the knowledge. And this is our way. This is the way Spain intends to deepen the knowledge of sustainability in Nigeria and when people understand the consciousness. Because we speak to climate finance, we're not speaking to people in the sustainability department. I think what has been the challenge is that dichotomy created that sustainability departments are different. No, I think for me, it was faulty. No, for me, the argument that I've told people, that no, that every professional in an organization can be a sustainability professional. It doesn't mean to be an expert, but it can be a sustainability professional, but not an expert. That's a different conversation. So that's what we are doing, and that is the journey we are now. And I think Spain is more, I think we have grown, Spain has grown, and it's grown in a way that is very organic, which is what sustainability is about. And it's moving at a pace which is now very interesting. And if we continue to do these trainings, engage society, engage organizations, engage the public sector, I think Spain will achieve that aim of of building a sustainability society, a society of sustainability professionals, a society that thinks sustainability, that sees sustainability as a way of life in what they do, either the public sector, because the target is not just organizations like private, corporate organizations, but we're also looking at government. We're looking at the public sector. How do we deepen? Because we know in the public sector we have the SDG offices. At times, those guys you don't even know what they're doing, and you don't even have a basic knowledge, and maybe the special advice. I don't know, but at the end of the day, we need these people because sustainability will not work from an economic perspective and that social perspective, and that broad thinking of societal culture, if we do not bring in the policy thinkers and the regulators into on play so that they can be part of it. like what is happening in EU and even in America. Despite the opposition for Republicans, you can see what is even in America. That when you even have the office of the chief, the office of the sustainability, I mean the chief sustainability officer, Biden has an office for the federal office of the chief sustainability officer. So you see what they're even doing, even despite the Republicans push back, even with the Inflation Reduction Act, which the Climate Change Act, and the CHIPS Act and Jobs Act, what they are doing is building infrastructures that are really resilient, that are green infrastructure. Nobody is resisting it because it's about the economy. It's about building economic direction and building, building, robust infrastructures that will withstand any iota of any climate issues or any wherever. So these are some of the things that. So that's how we need policy. So spin is looking at from the policy perspective as government, looking at strengthening the financial sector, looking at strengthening all the manufacturing sector, and the differences that we can have a society where sustainability is what is driving its social, economic, and generally the way of life.
Excellent. So I totally agree with you. So we're in very interesting times in Nigeria. The cost of living, well, it's not just limited to Nigeria. It's a global issue, cost of living. And what would be your advice to individuals, as in how can they manage and maneuver using sustainability as a backdrop to ensure that they are able to survive the difficult times? What would be your advice to everyone listening to us that is struggling to make ends meet? And what can they do sustainably to make sure that they do not exhaust themselves while trying to survive in these difficult times?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question because most time we don't really look at this aspect of sustainability. We look at it from only that aspect of maybe we don't see value from that. We use the word value from this aspect of sustainability. How do we look at ourselves and say, how do we keep going on and keep our resources in a way that they are not overspent or overused? That's what this question is answering. And again, if you
And
go back to the circular economy conversation, and you go back to the life cycle analysis of more many people do in and circular economy conversation, this is what it's about. It's about, and why we are what circular economy is clearly about is that it is time for the world to understand that resources are not infinite. That resources are finite. And if resources are finite, we need to create a mechanism to ensure that we go back, we change our production systems, our manufacturing systems, and all the thinking around the way things were done in the past to a way that that loop system that we reuse things, we recycle things, and which comes from even the production. So what I would say here is that in as much as an individual, as individuals, we need to ensure that we actually be able to live realistically in terms of our expenses and reuse things that we need to reuse when rather than waste, and not even now and continuously, because the what we adopt now is something that we need to use continuously and rely on continuously. It also falls back to the producers. And when we look at the SDG 12 of sustainable consumption and production, it starts from there. The SDG 11 on sustainable industrialization, it starts from there. So what it means is that our producers, our businesses, our manufacturers, and needs to go back, and government in itself and all that needs to go back to the drawing board and say, how do we create society whereby there is a clear loop in that society whereby waste is considered to be a resource? Because in the society we are today in Nigeria, waste is not a resource. In different rooms, waste is not a resource. So the question is that how can waste become a resource? So that is the fundamental question that we need to answer. And until we do that, we've had a conversation around extended producer responsibility, which in Europe and other parts of the world is getting stronger. In Nigeria, yeah, we know in Israel and some private businesses are pushing it, which again makes sense, but we are still not there yet as a society when it comes to the extended producers responsibility. So that is where we need to start from and say, how do we create a culture? Because many people who are still not culturally inclined to waste seen as a resource that can be reused and all that. And when I go waste here, I'm talking of waste like, for example, bottles. Bottles, for example, waste that can actually be reused, that you don't even need to discard and all that. So those are the things that will come and cut it costs. It doesn't even wastage of food, because what it means is that you can't go to a restaurant, for example, or buy excess food and leave half of the plate and say you're full, and what is going to happen to that waste? So this in itself is a challenge. And when you look at the trillion spent on wasted food in a year, it doesn't make sense. Even in our homes. So when you cook food in the home, do you cook food for that number? What portion is wasted? Most times, 50% of that food is wasted, and that itself is a problem. So sustainability accounts for that not to happen, and that's why sustainability needs to be taken to homes, and this is why we need a clear policy direction, a clear awareness direction, take it to homes to make them understand that wastage in itself is a sustainability issue that needs to be addressed.
Actually, I actually love that dimension you brought about food in the restaurants. I constantly have this challenge when you go to eat out. They have like a fixed portion. Even when you tell them to reduce it, you're not going to be able to finish everything. Somehow they feel that, no, they have to give you that fixed portion. So what can we do as playing in the sustainability space to create awareness amongst restaurants, hotels about the fact that you shouldn't have necessarily a fixed portion, because not everybody eats the same quantity, because it's actually a major issue. I read somewhere that about 3.5 trillion naira is wasted annually in
Yeah.
Nigeria from food, from food wastage. So it's a major issue. How can we address it?
I think first it's nice. I also do the same, and I tell them most times, I say no. It would be nice for you to give me a portion that I can. Even when they bring it, I say no. You have to take it away and give me this portion. This is what I can eat. And at times they do. At times they say no, they can't do that. But there are some that say okay, fine, they do it. And I advise and I educate them on why that is important and why this waste is. But from an individual perspective, that cannot be achieved. And
Yes.
that is why it is important from a policy sense for us to have a clear direction on food consumption. So when we look at SDG 12 on responsible consumption and production, that is what it's about. So the producer who is bringing the food and who is consuming the food needs to be able to understand that it is not, there was this culture, the British culture of when you are giving food to eat, you don't have to finish the food. It was cultural. That was a culture. But we want, hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, I can hear you now. You were muted. Yeah.
Yes, you went. That from an individual perspective will not work. A restaurant on its own voluntarily, and that is why most times what I say, if you look at the history of Swiss Re, the Swiss is one of the biggest insurance companies in the world. In 1990, they adopted sustainability as a business agenda, not the idea of sustainability as philanthropy. No, as a business agenda. CSR in 1990, and today, when it comes to underwriting in insurance, Swiss Re has some of the most advanced sustainability products in the insurance industry. And that is it. That is Swiss Re in 1990. So, and then there was no pressure from Europe, no pressure from stakeholders, but they saw it as a competitive advantage. And they saw it as a way to regime the way to compete in the future. And there are a lot of organizations who did that. Unilever was like that. Nestle, working with Nestle, for example, working with Michael Porter, came up with the creative shared value. The whole creative shared value of Michael Porter was what he did for Nestle. Nestle's sustainability thinking is creative shared value between them and society. And Porter drove that, and Palmer drove that. Same thing with Paul Puma and Unilever. They came up with their Unilever Sustainable Living Plan, which before even the SDGs. And I tell you, most of the time when I see the SDGs the SDGs came in 2015, and I compared to University Plan in 2020, 2010, I think the SDGs were copied from Unilever. So you see these organizations except you have those organizations, but when you don't have them, what will matter for a company, for a restaurant business, looking at what it means from an economic point to waste about 3.5 trillion in Nigeria and globally, trillions of dollars globally, and what it also means in the impact, the waste, that impact, the impact on society as per the waste impact on the environment, what it means in terms of environmental consequences of that from food, what it means from an economic perspective, what it means is that we need from a policy sense, not punishment, not regulations that, like in Nigeria, typical regulations that is about punishment, but first, starting from an awareness perspective, moving from awareness to now say, okay, we can now set up clear regulations that will define the food industry in relation to waste of food. So that is what is required to address that. And we can take the lead, and it will be really fantastic if we can have to do that.
Honestly, in fact, that was going to be my next line of thoughts, that how can you and I take the lead in this discussion? Because we have a significant number of people who are hungry, and yet we have a lot of food wastage. How do we create a linkage between the food that is wasted and the number of people that don't have their daily meal? I think it's a conversation that we'll keep talking about and see how we can take a lead. And I'm really passionate about it. In fact, I did a video discussing the food waste because it's something that it's a burning issue for me, that you have people who don't have enough to eat, and then you have food going to waste. How can we ensure that that food that is going to waste is not wasted and channeled to address the issue of hunger and malnutrition? So going to my next question, how do you stay updated with the latest developments and trends in sustainability? What are the resources you use? What would you recommend to aspiring sustainability professionals who may be listening to us to improve themselves and become better sustainability practitioners? Hello,
Okay,
Godson.
thank you very much. Yes, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for the question. I think it's a good question also. You know, I I did not stumble onto sustainability as in stumble onto it and said maybe because of I was working in an organization and I was not maybe okay, go and work in sustainability unit and no. I would say I started my sustainability career from when I was doing my master's program at the School of Media and Communication at the Pan Atlantic University. Yes, my master was in media and communication. I majored in marketing communication. And when I was doing my thesis, I remember when I was doing my master's thesis, my master's thesis was on sponsorship, and I was reading some academic papers. Even before the thesis, I remember in my brands, I think it was in brand strategy or marketing strategy class, there was a paper that was given to us by our business school, a professor of marketing, and that paper was on brand building without mass media. I think it was written by Jennifer Aker of the Harvard Business School. It was in the Harvard Business Review. And that paper was talking about baby shop, different organizations, what they do in sustaining, then they call it CSRO, in CSRO, how their products, they change, they define their products, they build products that align, that try to solve problems. For example, they can build a product and say this product, for every you buy, for example, we will part of that money will go to solve a problem in one country, in one poor nation, and all that, provide maybe cream or whatever. So other ones were closely focused on the environment and all that. And this was I did my master's in 2011. I saw this and I was interested. I saw that social cost, that social essence of business. This guy wants to make money, but he be able to do this, and it was interesting to me. And also, when I was writing my thesis, I also stumbled on papers on sponsorship, which focused on sponsoring social causes by businesses, trying to address problems. I said, this is interesting. Then gradually, then a friend of mine wrote on cost-related marketing, which clearly aligns a product developed from a business perspective to addressing a social cause and to revenue. I said, this is really interesting. And that's where my interest peaked. Then I came across a paper. It was written by Professor Kenan Amechi, Professor who is the dean of the Lagos Business School today, who I was associated at the Lagos Business School, and I came across that paper, and was also who's the professor today, Professor is now a Professor Bongo Adi. It was about CSRO in Nigeria, bakery or indigenous practices. I read that paper and I was wow. And they brought out what organizations were doing, how they were mimicking foreign organizations, foreign businesses, and all that, and different perspectives. And the next thing, I applied for a research um, fellowship in the Lagos Business School, and I was hired and to the sustainability department, a center of the Lagos Business School, and that is how I came. And that there I finally met Ogbeche, who I read his paper. I have not met him. I met then Bongo was a doctor. He was there. I met him. I also met Amechi was in. Amechi was a professor at Edinburgh, University of Edinburgh Business School. He was a visiting professor at I also met him. These are people that I've read their papers, but unfortunately I met them. And that relationship grew and developed. And so at the time I was in Lagos Business School, it deepened my understanding. I kept reading academic papers, Potter's 2011 paper, Iman Kramer at the Baba Business Review on creating shared value. I also read a lot of other papers written by sustainability scholars, continuous reading them, understanding the philosophical understanding, the values in it, the economic thinking. Because Potter brought the industrial economic thinking to sustainability in itself, which he actually brought to strategy. Because Potter, and that's why it's funny. When people in sustainability try to gatekeep, I wonder because Potter is not a strategy, he studies strategy. Potter has a first degree, second degree, and a third degree in economics. He's an economist by training and by school. But Potter is a strategist. He's a strategist. And we have also seen I think the only woman, the second woman that has won the Nobel Prize in economics. The first woman to win the Nobel Prize in economics did not study economics. They were at the first degree level. She studied political science, has a PhD in political science, but she won the Nobel Prize in economics because her research was focused in economy. Earth is there today. Frederick Hayek, a Nobel Prize winner, has a PhD in political science and law, not in economics. Even the father of economics, like what's his name, Adam Smith, did not study economics. He's a moral philosopher, and that is why his first book was on the theory of sentiments. I've actually read that book before, but I read it after I read the Word of Nations, and I thought I think it would have been very helpful if I read it first. So you find that even though it's a lot, and based on that, it's a continuous reading of academic papers, practitioners' papers, policy papers, and standards. I remember when I was reading, even before the GRI, I remember the GRI standards came in 2015, but as of 2014, it was the G4. I read those standards. There was a standard, there was just guidelines. So moved to GRI, studied the standards. So I even wrote, I remember I said, I wrote a technical paper on sustainability, sustainability and HRO professionals. And one of the papers I read was the ISO 2600 in writing that paper. So and that's how I kept myself updated. Even with the IFRS standards, I followed the IFRS from the very inception, before it became a prototype. From the formation, from high school, the conversations, I followed every step to when for the first prototype before it was even a draft. And I kept updating a lot of people that I knew then. I was on the other side because they look at what is coming. This is important. We'll be waiting for this. It's going to change the thinking because why? Not really because the standards will be the best. I'm not saying they're not the best, but because IFRS is domesticated in more than 40 jurisdictions. So that matters a lot. And even the SROS, when Europe came with the sustainable finance disclosure regulation, I said this is a good signal in the capital market. Then they moved to having a taxonomy. And it was a gradual process from that taxonomy. The next thing we're seeing is ESROS, IFRA coming up with the ESROS, coming up with the corporate reporting sustainability directive. Now, uh, about last month, what happened? The corporate due diligence directive was similarly signed into law by the European Parliament. And you see, this clearly shows a clear direction that Europe is saying our economy is going to be driven from a sustainability point of view. So we from my economy. So that is why I keep myself up with it. I read a lot. I read. Is reading. I read a lot. I read that's a lot. Today I was going through the Kenya, what's it called, the draft report, the draft Kenya sustainable finance
Yeah,
taxonomy.
it's
Yes,
issued by the central
yes.
bank. Taxonomy.
Central Bank.
Yes,
Yes, the
yes,
taxonomy on green, the climate finance tax on green finance. So I was looking
yes.
at it today. I just was looking at it. I said, when is Nigeria going to come up with a taxonomy, either on sustainable finance or green finance or climate finance? This is very important. So I think that is that for me. That's how I keep myself updated. To read a lot. I read. I've never entered. The only time I've entered a class on sustainability was at Lagos Business School. That's when I just joined sustainability master class, and another there's like about two classes of sustainability. Then I have never entered a class in like a class doing a certification like GRI. And I tell people that I understood GRI by studying the standards
Yeah,
painstakingly. So how does this standard work? What does it mean? I keep going back to it because that's the only way you can learn from understanding sustainability, in my opinion. Yes, you need to train, you need to attend trainings, which is very important. I advise people to do like IEMA. IEMA is a very good one. The IEMA certification is a very good certification, environmental certification, very fantastic. And I also advise people to always like the trainings that Spain are conducting right now. They're good trainings because they're delivered by experts. If a class of Professor Amechi, is a class that you always love because it doesn't come to you as a knower. It comes to you as less engaged. So his perspectives are so fantastic and wonderful, like a philosopher speaking. And it listens to everybody, tries to make you understand sustainability from a very, even when you don't even understand it, you understand, is this what this is about? You keep asking, you keep wanting to salivate your knowledge in sustainability. I think that's, for me, that's what I would advise people to do.
yeah. I totally agree with you. Reading, reading, reading. I think for myself, that's what has helped me. Reading, constantly reading, keeping. I do some subscription like the IFRS foundation. I do a subscription. So if there's any development that has to do with the IFRS sustainability standards, I get a notification. I go and read. And interestingly, we share a similar background. I have always, right from when I was a child, I've always loved nature. But I never really saw how I could connect my love for nature with a career in the future. I served with Schlumberger Oilfield Services, and HSC was very, very prominent. And I was like, oh, this is something I like, but I'm an accountant. How do I play in this field? I walked away from it, ignored it after I served. When I did my master's in Cranfield University in the UK, my thesis was actually on finding out if there's any correlation between corporate social responsibility and the performance of banks. I looked at banks in Japan, US, and UK, and I found out that there was actually a positive correlation between the banks that were doing CSR and their financial performance. They actually performed better. But I my Wi-Fi and my mobile phone, it just keeps going on and off. But it's been a really, really interesting conversation with you. We've spent more than an hour, and I know we can continue having this conversation, and we'll keep in touch, definitely find a way to work together, especially that issue of driving the advocacy and policy regarding food wastage in Nigeria. It's really been a very exciting morning spending time with you, Godson. Always, always a delight to have conversations with you. Any last word for our listeners? What would you want to leave them with?
I think for me, one of the things I've seen and is that society remains very nebulous in Nigeria, mostly for people who don't really get to see it as kind of some kind of strange or very difficult thing for organizations to understand, and because they think that you cannot actually connect it with how, for example, organizations or societies or government make money in terms of revenue and all that. That's one. Then there's another one that has to do with sustainability, some sustainability so-called professionals or experts thinking that they have to keep sustainability, gatekeep sustainability in a way that, according to them, accountants have gatekept accounting, or the way tax professionals have gatekept. But again, these are the two issues that needs to be addressed, because I believe that sustainability cannot be gatekept. It's not possible to gatekeep sustainability. It's just like saying you are gatekeeping economics. You cannot. Sustainability is even broader than economics. Economics is part of sustainability. So you cannot gatekeep sustainability. And so sustainability professionals should understand that their role is to take the message of sustainability as social, a way of, and that's why I like what there's something that it has, the 7 pillars. I don't know if you do, Ndidi,
Yes, yes,
the
I know
African
her.
rep,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
African rep at the yeah, at the
International
ISB.
Sustainability
It was a
Standards. Yes,
yes,
I know
you was a Dangote. There's one thing she has what we call the 7 pillars, where she breaks it down into culture, social, economics, finance, I think economics, operations, like that. She broke it down, and she tries to make organization understand that sustainability needs to see from this dimension of the 7 pillars, from this 7 pillars dimension. And I think he's even working on a book on that now, which I think is going to be a fantastic book, and it's going to help a lot of people, whether from university, to understand sustainability. So, which is very good. I understand that it cuts across every unit in the organization, every department, every directorate, from the CEO down to even the security man, needs to understand sustainability, and also cuts across the business, or I mean the society, in terms of government policy direction. Every ministry needs to understand that sustainability informs their thinking, policy direction, the economy. CBN needs to start thinking. Look at what the Central Bank of Kenya just came up with, and we have NSBPS again, which again, I think the CBN has already taken NSBPS very seriously, the way they should do. And also the CBN needs to start looking at monetary policy thinking from that perspective. Macroeconomic thinking, we need to look at it from that perspective. Everyone, even from NAFDAC, okay, how do we inform, how does forcibly inform NAFDAC across like that? That is what is very important, so that so that it becomes something that people would see as tangible. And that is why ESG came. Because if you look at ESG, talking about environment, social, and governance factors, it tries to bring things that you can actually relate with, factors that you can relate with, so you can measure and say, okay, based on looking at diversity from a social sense, you can measure how an organization is improving that diversity, the clear KPI to be measured. So look at climate, GHG account, greenhouse gas accounting, looking at measuring greenhouse gases, you can be able to measure that. So look at from what's it called? That's social, then from a governance perspective, looking at fair competition. So you look at fair competition, for example, you look at antitrust issues. For example, Apple is going through antitrust issues today. That is a serious governance issue. So they can look at it and say from that they are failing and be able to measure and say this is what they are failing. So that will be very important. When this is achieved, people will begin to understand sustainability. Not necessarily, you cannot be just like, Even people, not everybody studies the economy is an expert in economics. But every individual as a human being knows economics in the most basic manner. You know numbers, you can calculate numbers. Even the poorest person in the world knows economics. He knows, for example, should I, even in smallest possible manner. Everybody knows, even the poorest person knows economics, he knows his finances, he knows even is struggling and all that. So it might not know it, might be at the poor level, but there's a clear science sense of that, and that's what sustainability should be. So sustainability should be that where everybody, and so many professionals need to make this as a priority to champion the cause of sustainability as a way of life, so that people will understand that sustainability is why we exist. For example, I always say something. I say, if you look at the symbiotic relationship between man and animal, and man or humans, animals, and what's it called, plants, you would
Plan.
see that yes, and plants, yes, humans and plants, for example, we need each other, we need to complement each other's sustainability, because without our carbon dioxide that we breathe out, we can't, plants cannot make oxygen that we need to breathe in. We need oxygen from plants and they need our carbon dioxide. Sustainability is about. And it shows that if we do that is why we want to protect nature, when we protect the world, forestation and for reforestation and afforestation, we want to do all these things so that we can keep existing, so that businesses can keep existing, so that social life can continue to grow, so that culture will continue to evolve, and so we can have a way of life that advances our technological advances technologically and in all ways. So this is very important. This is what as for me, some professionals to see this and build on it, in my opinion.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love that symbiotic relationship that you describe between humans or animals and plants. It's exciting when you begin to look at things in a broader perspective. So thank you so much, Godson, for spending this amazing 1 hour with us. And we'll keep having our conversations. We'll keep having this conversation because having such collaborations with someone that is passionate about sustainability, I think passion makes you go the extra mile. And I can clearly see the passion in you. I'm really, really excited about our conversation. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your morning.
Thank you very much too for having me, and thank you. And I think this is a very good program, and I think I appreciate the fact that you are doing this, and it's going to go a long way to building that the sustainability profession in itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.